Good afternoon and a very warm welcome back to the channel. So over the last 4 or 5 weeks I've test ridden the BSA Goldstar, the Triumph Speed 400 and the Royal Enfield's Interceptor, Bear and Guerrilla. And we're going to talk about which may be the best place to put your money this summer. Okay folks, the way this is going to work is we're going to go through 10 different categories. If a particular bike wins a category, it's going to get 5 points. If it comes last in a category, it's going to get 1 point. I've got all the categories written down here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and do this as a one take because I want to give you my instant reaction to which one I think should win each and every category, rather than kind of thinking about it and overanalyzing it too much. So let's kick it off. So one of the most important things, or one of the most important factors when purchasing a new bike is, of course, price. Now, the most cost-effective bike on this list is the Royal Enfield Guerrilla, coming in at £4,850. So that's going to take the 5 points in this particular category. Then with 4 points, we've got the Triumph Speed 400, coming in at £5,195. Then it's the BSA Goldstar at £5,499. The Interceptor with 2 points at £6,399. And then finally, the most expensive bike on this list is the Royal Enfield Bear, coming in at £6,749. Now, before you kill me down in the comment section below, I know there are some great deals on the Interceptor and on the BSA Goldstar in particular, but I'm going today with recommended retail price on all of these manufacturers' websites because I know for a fact that the other two models you can get some really good pre-reg deals on, but for sake of fairness, we're going to go with the RRP for all of these bikes. Now, the second category is looks. Now, this is very subjective and your opinion may differ to mine, and I'll be honest, my kind of opinion on this changes almost on a daily basis, but if you're asking me today, putting a gun to my head, I'm going to say the best looking bike on this list is the BSA Goldstar. I think it's got timeless classic looks and looks absolutely stunning, and no matter what colour you go for. So that's getting the 5 points in this category. Very close second, I want to go for the Royal Enfield Bear. I think it looks just a smidge better than the Royal Enfield Interceptor, so that's where I'm going for the 4 points here. Next, very close between the Interceptor and the Speed 400. I'm just going to edge it towards the Speed 400. Great looking bike in my opinion. I know some people say that dimensions don't quite work for them, but I really do think it's a great looking bike. That means 2 points go to the Interceptor. Stylish, classic, timeless looks that are never going to fade. And then 1 point goes to the Royal Enfield Guerrilla. Still a great looking bike, but yeah. It's a slow burner, that one, I feel. Now, the third and one of the most important categories is engine. So we're talking about 3 different things here. So we're talking about the exhaust note, the power the engine makes, and the way it delivers its power. For me, in terms of engine, I've got to give it to the Royal Enfield Bear. It's a great engine in that 650 twin. For reference, it's pushing out 47 brake horsepower, exactly the same as the Interceptor. But because it's got that 2-in-1 exhaust on it, it makes a little bit more torque, and you can really feel that. So that's going to take the 5 points in this category. I'm then going to go for this single-cylinder BSA Goldstar. So that bike's actually pushing out just 45 brake horsepower. But when you compare it with the Interceptor, I feel as though that has got a lot more punch. So that's going to get the 4 points. The Interceptor, being that parallel twin engine, same horsepower, of course, as the Bear, is going to get my 3 points. And then the last 2 bikes, this is going to be very subjective. So with the Speed 400, I mentioned it in my previous video. I'll put a link down in the comment section, in the description, sorry, to all of these videos. But the Speed 400 doesn't have a huge amount of power, below 7,000 RPM, and then it really kind of kicks in above then. So if you're somebody that kind of likes chasing that power band almost, the Speed 400 is going to suit you down to the ground. The Guerrilla, I found, was the opposite. Loads of torque and punch low down, but not so much at the top end. But for me personally, I preferred the engine in the Guerrilla, so that's going to get my 2 points. And then the Speed 400, unfortunately, is just going to get a solitary point. Next, onto Gearbox. Now, this is something that was really kind of hard to kind of categorize 5 to 1. So I'm not going to do that. There was one bike that stood out for me as having a slightly inferior gearbox to the rest, and that was the BSA Goldstar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to award that 4 points, and I'm going to award all of the other bikes 5 points. And the reason I say that that gearbox was a little bit inferior is it felt a little bit wallowy, a little bit marshmallowy. It wasn't like a really pronounced gear change. It was just not for me. The other gearboxes felt a lot more slick. So yeah, time points for that one, apart from the BSA Goldstar, which just falls a little bit short. Next, we're going to look at brakes. Now, I've purposely not looked into the tech specs of these because with brakes, I don't want to kind of look at the spec sheet and go, that one's got the better brakes on the spec sheet, so I'll go for that one. Not the case at all. So I've not looked at any specs for these whatsoever. And for me, there's a standout winner. It's the BSA Goldstar. The brakes on that bike feel so much better than the brakes on any of the other bikes I've ridden. So yeah, that's got to be top for me. Next, I'm going to go for the Guerrilla. So there wasn't a huge amount of difference between all of the Enfields for me, but I feel because of the weight of the Guerrilla being slightly lighter than the 650 Twins, I felt as though it stopped just a little bit better. So I'm going to award 4 points to that. I couldn't tell any difference between the Bear and the Interceptor, so I'm going to award both of those bikes 3 points. And finally, it's going to be the Speed 400 with just 2 points in that particular category. Now, onto the handling. So none of these bikes, I mean, you're not going to purchase any of these bikes because you want to kind of fling it around corners really quickly. But if you do want to do that, I'd say because of the weight saving you get with this particular bike, the Guerrilla is going to be the best bike for you. It's so light, so nimble, so agile. It's going to be great in town. It's going to be great in the twisties. So that's going to get my 5 points. For similar reasons, the Speed 400 is going to mop up 4 points in this category. Again, I think the weight is a lot to do with it. It does really make a big difference. So yeah, lots of points for the Speed 400. Next, going down to the Bear, it's going to get 3 points. That Showa suspension is a significant upgrade from the suspension on the Interceptor and really does make a difference. And you can really kind of flick that bike around the corners. I didn't feel as though you could with the Interceptor. So the Interceptor is going to come in next with 2 points. And then unfortunately, as much as I love the bike, the BSA Goldstar is going to get a solitary point. I just felt that this bike turned in so much slower than the other 4 bikes on this list. So just a point for the Goldstar, unfortunately. Next, on to comfort. We're looking at 2 main things here, really. So first of which is seat comfort, and second of which is riding position. So, you know, the kind of correlation and the connection between your backside, your hands, and the foot pegs. So for me, easy winner on this, it's the Guerrilla again. 5 points. I felt so comfortable as soon as I swung a leg over this bike, and that was perfect for me straight out of the box. I wouldn't need to modify anything. The seat was nice and comfortable, and it was just perfect. For reference, guys, I'm 5'7.5", so if you're a lot taller than me, you might find it a little bit cramped, but for me, it was absolutely perfect. Next for me, I think, would be the Bear. So because it's got slightly longer travel suspension, I just found it a little bit more roomy than the Interceptor, and the seat was a significant upgrade from that bike as well. So for that reason, it's going to get 4 points. Next, I'm going to go to the Speed 400, believe it or not, for 3 points. A slightly more aggressive riding position, your legs are tucked up ever so slightly more under you, and you're kind of more canted forward on this particular bike than you were on any of the others. But I did find it a really comfortable place to be. No leg cramp on that bike at all. And the reason the Interceptor is going to come so far down the pecking order with just 2 points is that seat is rock hard. If I were to purchase one of those bikes, that would be the first thing I would need to change on it. Also, it felt a little bit more cramped than, like I say, the other bikes. So, yeah, just 2 points. And then the BSA Goldstar seat comfort, not an issue whatsoever on this. But for me, it felt a little bit too small. Now, the seat height on that bike is just 780 millimeters. And for me, it was just a little bit too low to the ground. And I just felt really cramped on it. I've spoken to people that are 6 foot plus, not had an issue whatsoever. But for me, at just 5'7", I found it too small. So unfortunately, just a solitary point there for the BSA Goldstar. Next, we're going to move on to tech. Now, some people love tech, some people hate it. For me, I don't hate it, but I prefer analog clocks. But if we're talking about which bike offers the most, that particular bike is going to get the maximum points in this category. So, just to run through them, All of the bikes have ABS. The Speed 400 has traction control. All of the bikes have USB sockets, and the dash for the Guerrilla and the Bear 650 is a TFT. For the Goldstar and the Interceptor, it's analog, and then for the Speed 400, it's analog plus an LCD display. Just going back to the USB, just need to mention that the USB was only kind of introduced on the Interceptor from 2023 onwards, but as we're talking about brand new bikes, it's a tick in the box for that bike in this particular category. Navigation, Goldstar, Speed 400, Interceptor, nothing at all, and then the Guerrilla and the Bear 650, full TFT display with full integration for Google Maps. So because of that, that means the Bear 650 and the Guerrilla are going to sweep up 5 points, a tie in this category. The Speed 400, because of the traction control, is going to take 4 points, and then it's going to be the Goldstar and the Interceptor with 3 points for the tech. So moving on to fuel economy. You're going to be doing a lot of long distance riding. It's not really what these bikes are for, but if you do want to do a bit of touring, this may be important to you, especially if you're using it as a bit of a commuter as well. So the most economical bike on this list, again, is the Guerrilla, getting 5 points at 83.3 mpg for this bike. In a close second is the Speed 400 with 80.7 mpg. It's then the Goldstar with 70.6. The Interceptor, not the Interceptor, the Bear 650 with 62, and then the Interceptor with 61.3, just getting a point in that particular category. And last but by no means least, we've already talked about price, but purchase price is very, very different from value for money. So the Guerrilla was the cheapest bike on the list. I also think it offers the most value for money, so it's going to get a massive 5 points for me in this category. I think for a bike coming in under £5,000, it looks pretty good, it sounds okay, it goes well, it's a hell of a lot of fun, and I had a smile on my face the whole time I was riding this. So for me, I would say that's the best value for money bike that you can get out of these 5. So a full 5 points to the Guerrilla. Next, I'm going to give it to the BSA Goldstar. So that bike's coming in at £5,499, and that is a hell of a lot of bike for the money. And if we're looking at RRPs, it's almost a full £1,000 cheaper than the Interceptor. It's a cracking bike, cracking engine, and that engine for a big single is far better than it has any right to be. Really, really do love the engine on that bike. Next, we're going to go for the Bear 650. Look, it's a lot more expensive than something like the Speed 400, but it's a twin-cylinder engine. It's got a little bit more character. I personally think it looks better as well. There's a lot going on with that bike. So despite it being the most expensive bike on this list, I do think it offers you great value for money. Next, we've got the Triumph Speed 400 getting 2 points, £5,195. Again, it's a great looking bike, and if you're after a bike with an engine that kind of sings a little bit more at the top end, I think you're going to be really, really happy with this. The dash looks pretty good as well, so yeah, 2 points in that category. And I would say the Interceptor, unfortunately, is probably the worst bike in terms of value for money. It's $6,399. Look, if you're buying used, if you're buying a pre-reg bike, this is probably one of the best value bikes on the list, but brand new RRP, I think it falls down to just 1 point for the Interceptor. So you'll notice my pad is empty. I'm going to rewatch this back, add up all the points. I'll put a graphic up for each category on the screen in a second for you, but give me a few minutes. I'll be back and I'll tell you who came out on top. Okay, folks, so I've done some maths and we're back. Now, I said I was going to throw a graphic up on screen about the different categories. I want to do that in just a second. I don't want to give it away too much, but I want to go through all of the bikes in reverse order from 5th up into 1st. Just because a bike came in a certain position on the order doesn't mean I didn't like it. I enjoyed every single one of these bikes that I rode, so just bear that in mind when I'm giving out the scores. So in 5th place, which was a little bit of a surprise to me before I made this video, was the Interceptor with 25 points out of 50. It was then really, really close between 2nd and 4th. But in 4th place was the Triumph Speed 400 with 32 points. Then it was the BSA Goldstar in 3rd with 33 points. In 2nd place, it was the Royal Enfield Bear with 34 points. So really, really close between those 3 bikes. And then, of course, taking the top position was the Royal Enfield Guerrilla with 42 points. So big win for the Guerrilla there. I'll flash the graphic up now and up on screen now. Now, although the Guerrillas won this test, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the best bike for you. So I just want to spend a few minutes going through all of these bikes and kind of who they might suit. So in terms of the Interceptor, although it came last on this particular list, if you want a bike that's classic, that's timeless, you're not in a particular hurry, the Interceptor's a great bike. It didn't do brilliantly well in all of these categories. You know, in terms of value for money, it fell down a little bit. Looks like I gave it 2 marks, but that's really, really harsh. I've got to put it in an order, and for me, I thought a lot of the other bikes looked slightly better, but it's still a gorgeous looking bike, and if you've got one of these in your garage, hats off to you, because it's a great looking bike. But yeah, lots of 2-pointers, which meant it didn't kind of place really, really highly. Next was the Speed 400 with 32 points, and although this outscored the Interceptor by 7 points, that's the one bike I'm not going to buy, because it fell down in one key area for me, which was the engine. It was too revvy at the top end, and I don't want a bike like that. So despite that, the Interceptor is more in contention for my next new bike than the Speed is. Then we've got the BSA Goldstar. Absolutely gorgeous looking bike. So many things to like about this. Unfortunately for me, the ergonomics just didn't work out. But again, a little bit like the Interceptor. If you're looking for a bike that's nice and relaxed, but actually want a little bit more punch than the Interceptor, the Goldstar's the place to be. The only thing that lets that bike down is the suspension and therefore the handling. It's a lot slower to turn in than the rest of the bikes on this list. So if you are going to be buying a Goldstar, I'd probably say upgrading the suspension is maybe one thing that you want to look at straight off the bat. Next, in second place, was the new kid on the block, the Bear, with 34 points. Now, this is the most expensive bike on the list, but I do feel as though it justifies that price tag, especially above the Interceptor and the BSA Goldstar, which it directly competes with. It's got the upgraded Showa suspension, which in my opinion is really, really needed and makes a huge difference. It's transformative to that bike. In my opinion as well, it looks slightly better. Well, looks better than the Interceptor. I still say the Goldstar's got it beaten, but it's a great looking bike. And finally, look, you may love it, you may hate it, but it's got the TFT, it's got all of the tech on it, it's got that Google Map integration, and when you take all of that into account, I do think it's a great proposition. And then finally, the surprise of the bunch. It was the last bike that I test rode, and I did not expect to enjoy this bike as much as I did. Like I said earlier, when I had a grin on my face the whole time, it's an absolute hoot. So if you ever get the chance to ride one of these, I really do urge you to do so. I feel as though it's kind of the forgotten bike in Royal Enfield's range, and it shouldn't be. It's a great bike, and I felt as though that engine complemented the bike much better than it did in the I know they said the Triumph, much more than it did in the Himalayan 450. So we've got all of this out of the way. Because the Guerrilla's got the most points, doesn't mean I want to be buying this bike. Well, maybe. I put down a deposit on a bike, and you guys are going to be the first to find out 10 AM next Sunday. So stick around for that video. Hope that was useful, guys, and I hope if you're in the market for one of these bikes, that kind of helped make your mind up about kind of which categories are most important to you. As always, folks, thank you all so very much for watching. Take care, ride safe. Until the next time, goodbye.